Good morning, good afternoon, welcome back. 48 Laws of Power Discussion Series, fifth episode this week, Law 17. We are getting there. Morning, Froggo. Not gonna lie, doing 5 of these this week has been kind of exhausting. Has not been my whole vibe. So I've been giving it some serious thought, and I think I have managed to nail down a at least semi-permanent schedule for these going forward so that nobody is wondering if these just happen random times of the day and shit. So going forward, I'm fairly certain from now on I'm going to do 3 of these a week, and it will be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time for the Monday and Wednesday, and then noon o'clock for the Friday show. And I think that'll be the plan going forward. We should get through this in a couple of months or so. That's that, and hopefully that works out for everybody. If not, sorry about your luck, but that is the time that does work for me going forward uh, until further notice. So, what are we going to do tonight, Brain? This here, B Law 17. Keep others in suspended terror. Excuse me. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. This sounds like the type of chaotic shit. Somebody who doesn't like stability. Some little finger type shit. Chaos is a ladder. Looks like everybody slept in this Saturday afternoon. Either that or everybody's got Saturday morning shit to do, which could be the case. But the only one here is the frog. So yeah, judgment. Yeah. Humans are creatures of habit with an insatiable need to see familiarity in other people's actions. Your predictability gives them a sense of control. Turn the tables. Be deliberately unpredictable. Behavior that seems to have no consistency or purpose will keep them off balance, and they will wear themselves out trying to explain your moves. Taken to an extreme, this strategy can intimidate and terrorize. So this is how you be a tourist, people. You be super unpredictable. You got to be very unpredictable. That's what I was thinking. That this whole thing's going to be about keeping a controlled chaos, if you will, keeping an orderly disarray, so that nobody can really bet on what you might do next. A good example of this in modern time is former President the Donald, because that was the thing everyone always said about him. Like he might just be crazy enough, and he got a nuclear button, yada yada, all the rhetoric. But he wasn't a typical politician in the terms of like what the establishment machine knew of politicians. So his moves were often unpredictable, and that's what I think ultimately scared the machine, is they had no idea what the Donald might do. And I think that scared a lot of like foreign leaders as well, like Squabab, who is the emperor of a small country. Afternoon squabbles. So, and that's the thing about being, especially like if you're a international leader or the president of a large company or the king of a small planet, you don't want your actions and reactions to be predictable by your enemies. Because if they know what you're going to do, or they have a, like, yeah, you can't win a game of chess like that, and you can't really win the game of power that way either. You gotta be thinking 3 moves ahead, and you gotta have something up your sleeve that they will not see coming. I said not see, and I'm on the YouTubes. Observance of the law. In May of 1972, chess champion. You see, you see where they go with this? Chess champion Boris Spassky anxiously awaited his rival Bobby Fischer in some really weird named city, Reykjavik, I think, Iceland. The two men had been scheduled to meet for the World Championship of Chess, but Fischer had not arrived on time and the match was on hold. Fischer had problems with the size of the prize money, problems with the way the money was to be distributed, problems with the logistics of holding the match in Iceland. He might back out at any moment. Spassky tried to be patient. His Russian bosses felt that Fischer was humiliating him and told him to walk away, but Spassky wanted this match. He knew he could destroy Fischer, and nothing was going to spoil the greatest victory of his career. So it seems that all our work may come to nothing, Spassky told Comrade. But what can we do? It is Bobby's move. If he comes, we play. If he does not come, we do not play. A man who is willing to commit suicide has the initiative. That's true. If you're willing to, like, fuck yourself all the way over, it's your move, bud. Maddie! Hey! One never knows when one might just blurt out that Cool Frog is a Polish spy. I mean, he's actually a Fed, but that's another story for another time. Fischer had finally arrived in Reykjavik. But the problems and the threat of cancellation continued. He disliked the hall where the match was to be fought. You don't fight a chess match, you play. He criticized the lighting. He complained about the noise of the cameras. He even hated the chairs in which he and Spassky were to sit. Now the Soviet Union took the initiative and threatened to withdraw their man. The bluff apparently worked. After all the weeks of waiting, the endless and infuriating negotiations, Fischer agreed to play. Everyone was relieved, no one more than Spassky, but on the day of the official introductions, Fischer arrived very late, and on the day when the match of the century was to begin, he was late again. This time, however, the consequences would be dire. If he showed up too late, he would forfeit the first game. What was going on? Was he playing some sort of mind game? Or was Bobby Fischer perhaps afraid of Boris Spassky? It seemed to the assembled Grand Masters and to Spassky that this young kid from Brooklyn had a terrible case of the jitters. At 5:09, Fischer showed up exactly 1 minute before the match was to be canceled. Yeah, I think this is all by design, y'all. I think he did that shit on purpose. Fed. Yes, Chloe. Wasn't Bobby Karen married to Debbie Reynolds? What are you talking about, Squabbles? Nobody knows what you're talking about. That's not even words that you're doing down there, my friend. Yeah, I think Bobby has been playing Spassky this whole time, trying to get inside his head. Delay. Get him really annoyed, or make him think that you're afraid. Like uh, get him not knowing what the hell you're doing or why. But it's definitely to fuck with your head and get you off your game. I'm almost certain of that. The first game of a chess tournament is critical, since it sets the tone for the months to come. It is often a slow and quiet struggle, with the two players preparing themselves for the war and trying to read each other's strategies. It's a game, y'all. It's not a war. It's not a fight. Stop this. This game was different. Fischer made a terrible move early on, perhaps the worst of his career, and when Spassky had him on the ropes, he seemed to give up. Yet Spassky knew that Fischer never gave up. Even when facing checkmate, he fought to the bitter end, wearing the opponent down. This time, though, he seemed resigned. Then suddenly he broke out a bold move that put the room in a buzz. The move shocked Spassky, but he recovered and managed to win the game. But no one could figure out what Fischer was up to. Had he lost deliberately, or was he rattled, unsettled, even, as some thought, insane? Is he insane? I don't think he's insane. You got darts on the rope, so you don't. Yeah, you just think you do. I'm unpredictable though. This is a men's man stream. Yeah, this is chess and being unpredictable and losing on purpose. This I don't know what the hell this is at all. Like Bobby Fischer is supposedly one of the greatest of all times. After his defeat in the first game, Fisher complained all the more loudly about the room, the cameras, and everything else. He also failed to show up on time for the second game. This time the organizers had had enough. He was given a forfeit. Now he was down 2 games to none, a position from which no one had ever come back to win a chess championship. Fisher was clearly unhinged. Yet in the third game, as all those who witnessed it remember, he had a ferocious look in his eye, a look that clearly bothered Spassky. And despite the hole he had dug for himself, he seemed supremely confident. He did make what appeared to be another blunder, as he had in the first game, but his cocky air made Spassky smell a trap. Yet despite the Russian's suspicions, he could not figure out the trap, and before he knew it, Fisher had checkmated him. In fact, Fisher's unorthodox tactics had completely unnerved his opponent. At the end of the game, Fisher leaped up and rushed out, yelling to his confederates as he smashed a fist into his palm. "I'm crushing him with brute force." This dude does seem like he's insane. Anybody know anything about Bobby Fischer? He's got a fucking weirdo. In the next games, Fischer pulled moves that no one had seen from him before, moves that were not his style. Now Spassky started to make blunders. After losing the sixth game, he started to cry. One grandmaster said, "After this, Spassky's got to ask himself if it's safe to go back to Russia." Oh my God. Do they take chess that seriously over there? They gonna kill this man? Are they gonna, I mean, offline him, obviously. After the eighth game, Spassky decided he knew what was happening. Bobby Fischer was hypnotizing him. He decided to not look Fischer in the eye. He lost anyway. So he threw him off in the very beginning and then kept him off the whole time so far. After the 14th game, he called a staff conference and announced, "An attempt is being made to control my mind." Oh no, Spassky is losing it. He wondered whether the orange juice they drank at the chess table could have been drugged. Maybe chemicals were being blown into the air. Finally, Spassky went public, accusing the Fischer team of putting something in the chairs that was altering Spassky's mind. The KGB went on alert. Boris Spassky was embarrassing Soviet Union. The chairs were taken apart and x-rayed. A chemist found nothing unusual in them. The only things anyone found anywhere, in fact, were 2 dead flies in a lighting fixture. Spassky began to complain of hallucinations. He tried to keep playing, but his mind was unraveling. He could not go on. On September 2nd, he resigned. Although still relatively young, he never recovered from this defeat. Yeah, because Bobby Fischer done did a crazy person shit and drove you insane. Isn't that funny how that worked out? He had no idea what the hell he was doing. Turns out he was crushing you with brute force, just like he said. But I think it's funny that it only took a couple of really really unpredictable, weird moves, and then a change. Like every time you think you know what's going on, he's shifting it on you again. I didn't know that was a solid strategy in chess, but it works wonders in poker. Because if you're sitting at a poker table with people for a long enough time and you play a certain style, good players will pick up on that. So the way to make sure that they don't is to change it up often enough that you are being very unpredictable. Then they will never know exactly what you're up to. So this law definitely applicable in that environment. Interpretation. Let's see what Mr. Greene has to say about his interpretation of what Mr. Fisher did here to Mr. Spassky. In previous games between Fisher and Spassky, Fisher had not fared well. Spassky had an uncanny ability to read his opponent's strategy and use it against him. I just mentioned this with a poker table reference. But yeah, people can pick up on what you're doing, they can counter it very well. Adaptable and patient, he would build attacks that would defeat not in 7 moves, but in 70. Oh, so he's playing the long game. He leading you out to the middle of the ocean, and then he gonna drown you there. I hate when that happens. He defeated Fisher every time they played because he saw much further ahead and because he was a brilliant psychologist who never lost control. That right there. One master said, he doesn't just look for the best move, he looks for the move that will disturb the man he is playing. That's another poker reference if you didn't know it, that you don't play the cards, you play the man. And it sounds like his chess approach is like not to look for the best move for himself, but look for the one that, like, he already knows what your strategy is, so he looks for the one that's the most disruptive to what you're trying to do. That puts you all the way off. Fisher, however, finally understood that this was one of the keys to Spassky's success. He played on your predictability, defeated you at your own game. Everything Fisher did for the championship match was an attempt to put the initiative on his side and to keep Spassky off balance. Clearly, the endless waiting had an effect on Spassky's psyche. Most powerful of all, though, were Fisher's deliberate blunders and his appearance of having no clear strategy. In fact, he was doing everything he could to scramble his old patterns, even if it meant losing the first match and forfeiting the second. Nothing he did made any sense, though, so that's how that works out. Spassky was known for his sangfreude and level-headedness, but for the first time in his life, he could not figure out his opponent, because that's exactly what your opponent is going for. That is his full approach is. Good luck with figuring this out. He slowly melted down until at the end he was the one who seemed insane. Chess contains the concentrated essence of life. First, because to win you have to be supremely patient and far-seeing, and second, because the game is built on patterns. Whole sequences of moves that have been played before and will be played again, with slight alterations in any one match. Your opponent analyzes the patterns you are playing and uses them to try to foresee your moves, allowing him nothing predictable to base his strategy on gives you a big advantage. In chess, as in life, when people cannot figure out what you are doing, they are kept in a state of terror, waiting, uncertain, confused. I mean, I don't know if it's a state of terror that they be left in, but they be left probably in a state of confusion. Don't be terrorizing people, y'all. That's not cool. That Jesus wouldn't approve. But definitely be unpredictable. Hmm. We have italicized words, guys. Life at court is a serious, melancholy game of chess which requires us to draw up our pieces and batteries, form a plan, pursue it, parry that of our adversary. Sometimes, however, it is better to take risks and play the most capricious, unpredictable move. Uh, some name in French. I don't know it. Jean de la Bruyere. But yeah, being unpredictable is the way to go. Because then they don't know. They can't predict. Duh. Keys to power. Nothing is more terrifying than the sudden and unpredictable. This is why we are so frightened by earthquakes and tornadoes. We do not know when they will strike. After one has occurred, we wait in terror for the next one. To a lesser degree, this is the effect that unpredictable human behavior has on us. I mean, I don't actually sit and live in terror of earthquakes and tornadoes, mostly because I have neither of these things here. But knowing a bunch of people who live in like the earthquake part of California or the tornado part of like Texas and Oklahoma, like the Tornado Alley and shit, like people don't generally live in terror of the unknown because people don't generally live in terror, period. Like, this is a silly thought. Like, maybe if you have someone who's unpredictably fucking with you, that might live you in terror, but like these shits are gonna happen, and if you live in places where they happen, you're aware of that, but you don't just sit and live in like you probably don't even think about these things until they're actually happening. It's like, oh shit, this is happening again. And then all of a sudden you're in terror because it's happening, but there's no constant terror between them. That's a silly thought. Animals behave in set patterns, which is why we are able to hunt and kill them, them, hunt and offline them. Only man has the capacity to consciously alter his behavior, to improvise and overcome the weight of routine and habit. That's why we're the superior species, because we have the ability to think. Yet most men do not realize this power. That's because we're just an animal species after all. We're made in the image of God, but we're not very bright. They prefer the comforts of routine, of giving in to the animal nature that has them repeating the same compulsive actions time and time again. I mean, they do be doing that. Creatures of habit they are. They do this because it requires no effort and because they mistakenly believe that if they do not unsettle others, they will be left alone. You won't. Never leave you alone. They're gonna bother you till the end of your days. Understand, a person of power instills a kind of fear by deliberately unsettling those around him to keep the initiative on his side. You sometimes need to strike without warning to make others tremble when they least expect it. It is a device that the powerful have used for centuries. Filippo Maria, the last count of the Visconti Dukes of Milan in 15th century Italy, consciously did the opposite of what everyone expected of him. For instance, he might suddenly shower a courtier with attention, and then, once the man had come to expect a promotion to higher office, would suddenly start treating him with the utmost disdain. Confused, the man might leave the court, when the Duke would suddenly recall him and start treating him well again. Doubly confused, the courtier would wonder whether his assumption that he would be promoted had become obvious and offensive to the Duke, and he would start to behave as if he no longer expected such honor. The Duke would rebuke him for his lack of ambition and would send him away. This Duke sounds like a woman. This is called a shit test, y'all. I rarely ever eat breakfast or have coffee. What? What do you do in the mornings then? Like, what do you, I mean, everybody eats breakfast because everybody breaks fast eventually. So you can't say you don't eat breakfast. You don't eat in the morning, but you always break fast eventually or you'll die of starvation. Though your physical body will die of starvation. Yeah, but this Duke, he sounds like a woman. He's doing shit testing. The secret of dealing with Filippo was simple. Do not presume to know what he wants, like a woman. Do not try to guess what will please him. Never inject your will. Just surrender to his will, then wait to see what happens. Exactly like a woman, god damn it. This is how it works. Amidst the confusion and uncertainty he created, the Duke ruled supreme, unchallenged, and at peace. That doesn't sound right. Unpredictability is most often the tactic of the master, but the underdog too can use it to great effect. If you find yourself outnumbered or cornered, throw in a series of unpredictable moves. Your enemies will be so confused that they will pull back or make a tactical blunder. Huh. Sometimes. I mean, if they're really that confused, they might just like go all out because they've got you cornered or outnumbered, and they might just crush you completely. In the spring of 1862, during the American Civil War, oh goody, the Civil War, the thing that killed America, General Stonewall Jackson and a force of 4,600 Confederate soldiers were tormenting the larger Union forces in the Shenandoah Valley. Meanwhile, not far away, General George Brinton McClellan, heading a force of 90,000 Union soldiers, was marching south from Washington, D.C. to lay siege to Richmond, Virginia, the Confederate capital. As the weeks of the campaign went by, Jackson repeatedly led his soldiers out of the Shenandoah Valley, then back to it. His movements made no sense. Was he preparing to help defend Richmond? Was he marching on Washington? Now that McClellan's absence had left it unprotected, was he heading north to wreak havoc up there? Why was his small force moving in circles? Jackson's inexplicable moves made the Union generals delay the march on Richmond as they waited to figure out what he was up to. Meanwhile, the South was able to pour reinforcements into the town. A battle that could have crushed the Confederacy turned into a stalemate. Jackson used this tactic time and again when facing numerically superior forces. Always mystify, mislead, and surprise the enemy, if possible, he said. Such tactics will win every time, and a small army may thus destroy a large one. This guy sounds like Sun Tzu now. General Stonewall Sun Tzu from The Art of War. Just keep them guessing and trying to, like, just keep them sitting where they are because they don't know what the hell you're doing. You just look ridiculous out here. But you seem to be winning. Systematically picking them apart little by little until their numbers are inferior to yours. This law applies not only to war, but to everyday situations, like combing your hair, going to work, driving in a car. Definitely driving in a car. People are always trying to read the motives behind your actions and to use your predictability against you. Throw in a completely inexplicable move and you put them on the defensive. Because they do not understand you, they are unnerved, and in such a state, you can easily intimidate them. You gotta be really unpredictable. They mean it. Like they're not. This is not a joke. Pablo Picasso once remarked, "The best calculation is the absence of calculation." Once you have attained a certain level of recognition, others generally figure that when you do something, it's for an intelligent reason. So it's really foolish to plot out your movements too carefully in advance. You're better off acting capriciously. For a while, Picasso worked with the art dealer Paul Rosenberg. Wait a minute, isn't that Eminem's lawyer from like the early Eminem CDs? Was that not his Paul Rosenberg, Eminem's lawyer's name? These Jews. At first he allowed him a fair amount of latitude in handling his paintings. Then one day, for no apparent reason, he told the man he would no longer give him any work to sell. As Picasso explained, Rosenberg would spend the next 48 hours trying to figure out why. Was I reserving things for some other dealer? I'd go on working and sleeping, and Rosenberg would spend his time figuring. In 2 days, he'd come back, nerves jangled, anxious, saying, "After all, dear friend, you wouldn't turn me down if I offered you this much," naming a substantially higher figure, "for those paintings rather than the price I've been accustomed to paying you. Would you?" He was like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna give you no more work." He's like, "I'll give you more money." Like, "Yeah, I got myself a raise. How do you like them apples?" I'm not gonna tell you why I'm not gonna give you no more work. I'm not gonna give you no more paintings to sell. And thus I just made myself more money. That comes out of your pocket or the customer's pocket. It comes out of someone's pocket and goes into mine. That's a point. Unpredictability is not only a weapon of terror, thank goodness, because this terrorism shit, like, you guys are gonna get me in trouble. Uh, this Robert Greene and the 48 Laws, you're gonna get me in trouble. Scrambling your patterns on a day-to-day basis will cause a stir around you and stimulate interest. People will talk about you, ascribe motives and explanations that have nothing to do with the truth, but that keep you constantly in their minds. In the end, the more capricious you appear, the more respect you will garner. Only the terminally subordinate act in a predictable manner. Terminally subordinate, that means the servant or the slave. Those types. Not the master morality, the slave morality. Image, the cyclone, a wind that cannot be foreseen. Sudden shifts in the barometer, inexplicable changes in direction and velocity. There is no defense. A cyclone sows terror and confusion. Cyclone, tornado, it's all the same thing. I mean, just different regions. They call it different shit. But it's all the same shit. It's not different. Definitely not different at all. Authority. The enlightened ruler is so mysterious that he seems to dwell nowhere. So inexplicable that no one can seek him. So he's invisible. He reposes in non-action above, and his ministers tremble below. Han Fei Tzu, Chinese philosopher. So I mean, he's so mysterious that he doesn't even exist. Ooh, big ominous. Reversal. Okay, so we got a argument here for why being predictable would be good. I doubt it. Sometimes predictability can work in your favor by creating a pattern for people to be familiar and comfortable with. You can lull them to sleep. They have prepared everything according to their preconceived notions about you. Bitch, don't assume shit. If you think you know me, ha! Fuck out of here. Oh, hi. Wave. Hello, Div. Big ominous, yeah. Big ominous indeed. You can use this in several ways. First, it sets up a smoke screen, a comfortable front behind which you can carry on deceptive actions. Second, it allows you on rare occasions to do something completely against the pattern, unsettling your opponent so deeply he will fall to the ground without being pushed. Knock you out without touching you. Because you tripped over your own feet, stupid. Ha ha. You didn't see that come. I mean, you saw that coming, didn't you? And then you didn't. Ha! About that. In 1974, Muhammad Ali and George Foreman were scheduled to fight for the World Heavyweight Boxing Championship. Everyone knew what would happen. Big George Foreman would try to land a knockout punch, while Ali would dance around him, wearing him out. That was Ali's way of fighting, his pattern. He had not changed it in more than 10 years. But in this case, it seemed to give Foreman the advantage. He had a devastating punch, and if he waited, sooner or later, Ali would have to come to him. Ali, the master strategist, had other plans. In press conferences before the big fight, he said he was going to change his style and punch it out with Foreman. No one, least of all Foreman, believed this for a second. That plan would be suicide on Ali's part. He was playing the comedian as usual. Then, before the fight, Ali's trainer loosened the ropes around the ring, something a trainer would do if his boxer were intending to slug it out. But no one believed this ploy. It had to be a setup. To everyone's amazement, Ali did exactly what he said he would do. As Foreman waited for him to dance around, Ali went right up to him and slugged it out. He completely upset his opponent's strategy. At a loss, Foreman ended up wearing himself out not by chasing Ali, but by throwing punches wildly and taking more and more counter punches. Finally, Ali landed a dramatic right cross that knocked out Foreman. If you've ever seen that poster, it's a very popular poster. Someone got a really good photograph of that. The habit of assuming that a person's behavior will fit its previous patterns is so strong that not even Ali's announcement of a strategy change was enough to upset it. Foreman walked into a trap, the trap he had been told to expect. Oh, that's funny. Like, I tell you, like, I'm not gonna do what you think I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. You think I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna do this. And then you go do that after you told them that's what you were gonna do. You didn't bother like at all to have like a just in case he's not bullshitting contingency plan here for what if he does this? Like, huh? Seems like a terrible strategy. Like when they tell you they're gonna do something, you should at least give that some like bearing of what if. A warning. Unpredictability can work against you sometimes, especially if you are in a subordinate position. There are times when it is better to let people feel comfortable and settled around you than to disturb them. Too much unpredictability will be seen as a sign of indecisiveness or even of some more serious psychic problem. Patterns are powerful, and you can terrify people by disrupting them. Such power should only be used judiciously. Huh. Well, how about that? What do you all think about it? Yeah, that's surprising, isn't it? There's our girl. Her name Divinity. She my favorite. Just saying. Oh yeah, unpredictability. What do you guys think about it? Okay, good show. See you Monday.